Glendale, Arizona. During SoxFest, Hahn was asked about the preconceived notion surrounding the White Sox that this team will not spend the money necessary to land one of the biggest free agents in the game. Weeks later, with Manny Machado opting to sign with the San Diego Padres for $300 million guaranteed dollars, as opposed to the $250 million guaranteed dollars, the White Sox reportedly offered the 26-year-old superstar. What Hahn called in January a false narrative has become, in the minds of many South Side baseball fans, impossible to disprove. Allowing a day to pass has not calmed White Sox Twitter, and the social media complaints from White Sox fans have continued more than 24 hours after their favorite team failed to win the derby that's captivated their attention for months. At times, their ire has been directed at Machado. Tim Anderson became that segment of the fan base's hero Wednesday, when he said Machado might have missed the boat, but much of the anger has been directed at the front office and ownership. Why not guarantee another $50 million, they've begged, before jumping to their own conclusions that the White Sox will never be able to land a top-of-the-line free agent. Hahn spoke for a second time Tuesday during Cactus League Media Day in downtown Glendale and recognized, even shared in, some of that frustration. But his most relevant message was a promise that the financial flexibility created by the ongoing rebuilding process will not go to waste. "I get that sentiment. I understand that sentiment," he said when asked about fans' desire for the team to spend more aggressively. "What you try to do in these situations, I believe, is try to balance out the risk and the reward in all these things. These long-term contracts are obviously complicated. So it does come down, sometimes, to more than just throw more money on top of it in terms of a guarantee, which is probably the only area someone can argue, hey, you should have been more aggressive in this situation. At the end of the day, we made what we felt was not only a very aggressive offer, a very compelling offer, and one that helped balance and represent the risk and the upside for both sides. Didn't work, which is obviously disappointing. But it does not change the fact that we are going to once again be in this market when the time is right and hopefully, at that time, convert. The money will be spent. It might not be spent this off-season, but it will be spent at some point. This isn't money sitting around waiting to just accumulate interest. It's money trying to be deployed to put us in best position to win some championships." Attacks that the White Sox were being cheap in their pursuit of Machado are simply wrong. If reports are accurate, they committed to paying Machado $350 million over the course of 10 years. Now, there are obvious differences in the offers reportedly made by the Padres and White Sox, and if Machado shows up to Padres camp in Peoria, Arizona, in the coming days and breaks his leg, he'll be $50 million richer than he would have been had he signed with the White Sox. It is also important to note that the White Sox reported offer allowed Machado to bet on himself and potentially earn $50 million more than he is set to make in San Diego over the course of the next decade. The biggest takeaway from this whole situation is that the White Sox rebuilding plans are not negatively affected one iota by Machado's decision. Machado heading to San Diego does nothing to decrease Eloy Jimenez's power or make Michael Kopech's recovery from Tommy John surgery more difficult or take a mile per hour or two off Dylan Cease's fastball. The core is still coming, still looks capable of forming a perennial championship contender, and Machado's decision was never going to change that. Additionally, Machado's decision is only that, his decision. There's another loaded free agent class coming next off-season, and those players will all have their own decision-making processes, their own desires in terms of contracts and bets on themselves, and a desire to win and align themselves with a team like the White Sox, who will undoubtedly be involved and likely as aggressive, if not more so, than they were this off-season. Maybe Nolan Arenado feels differently. Maybe J.D. Martinez or Anthony Rendon feel differently. Maybe Justin Verlander or Madison Bumgarner want to be the South Side version of John Lester. It also figures to be an easier job to sell the White Sox another year down the line, when players from around the league can see what it would be like to play alongside Jimenez and Cease, when there's a clearer picture of what this team will look like in contention mode. And barring a surprise splurge on Bryce Harper, they're reportedly out on the biggest name on the free agent market. They'll have the same financial flexibility to add this caliber of player. Machado wasn't the only opportunity to make that kind of addition. There will be others, and soon. A year from now, we will be in a better position to know more about our own guys and know more about what's available and where specific needs may lie and what specific needs we may have addressed. When we have that knowledge, that's where this money is going to go, Hahn said. It's going to serve us well in the long term to have this economic flexibility and this economic might to make ourselves better. We saw an opportunity now to potentially fit in for the long term. Didn't work, but does not change the fact we are going to take advantage of those opportunities again when they arise in the coming years. None of that, of course, is likely to soothe the tempers of fans still reacting to this free agent defeat. And none of it has to. Fans are allowed to be mad, and they'll likely carry the idea that the White Sox won't spend until they're proven wrong. And Hahn recognizes that. He said as much back at SoxFest. If for whatever reason we fail to convert this time around, perhaps that narrative will exist for another year, he said, but we look forward to proving that one false like we have the others. Unfortunately, that remains an item on the to-do list. Click here to download the new My Teams app by NBC Sports. Receive comprehensive coverage of your teams and stream the White Sox easily on your device. Glendale, Arizona, with the wounds still fresh from the White Sox losing out in the Manny Machado sweepstakes. How about we begin with some healing words from Indians general manager Chris Antonetti about future White Sox superstar Eloy Jimenez? Can he go to San Diego, too? How about Cleveland? Would that work? Antonetti told NBC Sports Chicago. Jimenez is a really good player. It's been fun to see him develop. Right now, I've really enjoyed watching his development in the minor leagues. I'm not sure how much I'll like to see that development in the major leagues. Jimenez looks like he's going to be the total package, both on and off the field. His talent, personality, charisma and desire to be one of the best players in the game give him the necessary intangibles to eventually become the face of the White Sox franchise now that Machado is headed to San Diego. How great of a player does Jimenez want to become? Miguel Cabrera, Mike Trout, Adam Jones, superstars. That is my dream, Jimenez said on the White Sox Talk podcast soon after the White Sox acquired him from the Cubs in 2017. Jimenez talks a big game. He continues to back it up with his play. Last season in 55 games at AAA Charlotte, he hit .355, .399, .597. Having Jimenez in the same lineup as Machado certainly would have been a huge boost for the rebuild, but as an executive in the White Sox division, Antonetti is acutely aware of what the White Sox already have without Machado. I think the White Sox are very well positioned with some of the extraordinary trades that they have made and the players they have brought into the organization and the way that they have complemented them with some experienced veteran guys. Antonetti said. They have a compelling story to tell about why they'll be in contention this year. That's certainly the plan inside the White Sox clubhouse. Despite not having Machado as a teammate, all the players I've spoken to in the last few months openly wanted the White Sox to sign him. Who wouldn't? But now that he isn't coming and this tedious negotiation process is in the past, are they glad it's finally over? F***K***S**T, maybe you'll stop asking me this, said Tim Anderson when I asked what is hopefully my very last Machado question. Anderson added, we're going to be Southside regardless. Nobody's decisions determines what we've got going on in this locker room. I feel like we have a great group of guys here. We're going to do something special. The White Sox are moving in the right direction. One decision doesn't dictate our season. While many White Sox fans are feeling the gloom and doom of missing out on Machado, the mood inside the White Sox clubhouse on Tuesday had the usual pep of spring training. Yolmer Sanchez was blasting Latin music on his massive boombox. He wildly danced on a chair behind Anderson as the White Sox shortstop met the media. Basically, your typical day at Camelback Ranch. I always say I wish the best for Machado to get the best deal. $300 million is a lot of money. I'm really happy for him. As a baseball player, that's the goal, Sanchez said about Machado's reported deal with the Padres. I hope he enjoys playing in San Diego. If we play against him, we're going to beat him. As for Hahn, he's feeling the lumps of a general manager who lost out on Machado. He and Antonetti have been close friends and competitors for years. It's a relationship that goes back to the late 1990s. I'm guessing, knowing how competitive Rick is, he's probably not happy at the moment. Antonetti said about Hahn. He may have gotten a few more gray hairs. If it wasn't for the $300 million guaranteed offer by the Padres, Machado would have likely been on his way to Glendale to join the White Sox. Instead, he's headed down the road to the Padres' spring training site in nearby Peoria. For the White Sox, he might as well be in Alaska now. They're moving on. Either ride with us or you get run over. We're going to keep rolling, Anderson said. We can care less about who's on the boat with us, we know who's on the boat with us. We know which way we want to sail, so we're going to get there. Click here to download the new My Teams app by NBC Sports. Receive comprehensive coverage of your teams and stream the White Sox easily on your device. Glendale, Arizona. After the White Sox missed out on Manny Machado, a common reaction was, well, Bryce Harper is still out there looking for work. Well, it appears the White Sox won't be turning their attention to the other big name on this off-season's free agent market, with USA Today's Bob Nightingale reporting Wednesday that they are out on Harper. The Chicago versatile infielders Marvin Gonzalez and Josh Harrison, along with starter Gio Gonzalez, still on the free agent board. Bob Nightingale, at B. Nightingale, February 20, 2019. The White Sox did pursue Harper earlier this offseason, reportedly meeting with him twice in the final months of 2018. But after pitching him on the organization's bright future, it's been all quiet on the Harper front over the past couple months. Nightingale reporting that the White Sox aren't chasing Harper isn't shocking in the wake of Tuesday's Machado news. It was reported that they offered Manny Machado $250 million, as part of a contract that could have ended up being worth $350 million, which was turned down in favor of the offer from the San Diego Padres, worth a reported $300 million, all guaranteed. Harper, a bigger brand if not a better player, figures to command more. Between a seeming focus on Machado and an admitted preference to not go to $300 million guaranteed with Machado, the White Sox not being in the mix for Harper makes sense. And so an off-season defined by the team's pursuits of the two biggest names on the market looks likely to end without either ending up on the south side. As for the rest of Nightingale's tweet, that the White Sox are still looking to add to the roster before opening day, that's something Rick Hahn confirmed Tuesday, saying he was working on moves in the car ride from Camelback Ranch to Cactus League Media Day in downtown Glendale. But while Nightingale lists some of the next best free agents still available, Marvin Gonzalez, Josh Harrison and Gio Gonzalez, that doesn't mean the White Sox have interest in those specific players. They might, and all three would bring obvious value in the immediate. But there does not figure to be a traditional Plan B, now that the White Sox have missed out on Machado, where they would try to sign the next best player as a consolation prize. More likely are smaller moves that help with short-term needs, such as a spot in the starting rotation or more help in the bullpen. White Sox fans, not to mention Hahn himself, are obviously disappointed over the end result of the Machado sweepstakes. But there's no scrambling for Harper or any other big name to put out social media anger. Instead, the rebuild remains on track, full steam ahead. Click here to download the new My Teams app by NBC Sports. Receive comprehensive coverage of your teams and stream the White Sox easily on your device.